Welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I am Amarachi Ubani. We continue our discussion on security here in Nigeria and across the West African region as terror group Boko Haram makes new acquaintance, having been accepted by ISIS, which says it will be expanding its operations in West Africa. On the other hand, the Nigerian military has recorded bigger successes against the militant group Boko Haram, completely freeing the state of Adamawa from its grip. Troops have been working alongside counterparts from Niger, Cameroon and Chad. There have been losses on their part, but there's been no relenting either on the drive to push Boko Haram out of Nigeria. So on the program this week, while we praise the efforts of the troops to stamp out Boko Haram, we're also examining what the new allegiance by Boko Haram could mean for the group, for ISIS and for Nigeria. Plus, President Goodluck Jonathan puts a time frame for when all the states terrorized by Boko Haram will be delivered. Then Dr. Nuruddin Jebnoon of the African Center for Strategic Studies in Washington, D.C. shares with us his perspectives on how groups like Boko Haram emerge and what we can do to stop it. We'll be going into all of these in a few minutes. Welcome back. Last week, Boko Haram reached out to the Islamic State, saying they were pledging allegiance to the group and promised to promote its activities in this part of the world. Boko Haram, before now, as we pointed out last week, has been reenacting some of ISIS activities already. Recently posted a video of a beheading. Before then, it had been establishing flags in towns captured during raids in Nigeria's northeast. Now that the group has been formally recognized by their mentor, ISIS, should we be worried?
There are many similarities between Boko Haram and the Islamic State militants. Apart from the raids on villages they capture and the establishing of flags, as well as the video recording most dastardly acts, both seem to have developed some kind of camaraderie in their style of communication to one another. Boko Haram had last week released an audio tape attributed to its leader Abubakar Shekau, pledging allegiance to the group intent on carving a small country between Iraq and Syria by the violent takeover of towns and villages. Later in the week, ISIS responded in much the same fashion. Its spokesperson, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, is heard speaking in Arabic. In the audio recording, he announces the extension of the caliphate to West Africa and congratulates the Muslims and people he describes as jihadi brothers in West Africa, pledging their allegiance and joining the caliphate. According to him, a new door has opened for IS members to live in the caliphate. Before this announcement, experts had doubted Boko Haram's message would be acknowledged.
I'm not sure it will have any impact to start with, number one. Number two, I just think it shows you the emptiness of Boko Haram, you know. Why would you, for example, choose a time like this when the whole world is against one organization to align yourself with that organization? Ideologically, I'm not even sure that they are close. The ISIS, I'm not sure they are interested in Africa, talk less of Nigeria. And the fact that they have their own ambition and plans for some areas of the Middle East.
The announcement released on Friday is yet to draw reactions from the international community, but it does confirm what analysts had thought all along, that up until now, Boko Haram has had no link with ISIS, but have been related to the group by the excuse of religion.
Over the past 14 years, it's been religion of one sort or the other, and people take values, twist it, interpret it in different ways.
And religion is probably the only string that ties ISIS and Boko Haram together, as both groups preach a message of non-compromise of faith, but would probably disagree in matters of governance, because while ISIS does seem to have a proper structure in place, that of Boko Haram's is more diffused. Ideologies of both groups also come from different centuries. But even on religious grounds, analysts say they differ. While ISIS intends to restore 7th century Islam, Boko Haram seems more comfortable with Islam from the 13th century, influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah from Iraq. Boko Haram has in recent years enjoyed influence in Nigeria's northeast region and most recently extended its attacks to neighboring West African countries, while the Islamic State in Iraq and in Syria. But should there be a merger of both groups, who would be subject to whom? In the meantime, ISIS has been making inroads to other parts of Africa, such as Libya. Since the fall of military dictator Muammar Gaddafi, warring cities and towns have been entangled in internal conflicts over money and power, providing a fertile ground for an ISIS expansion. In other words, before Nigeria, Libya has already become a frontier for the terror group. Hence the video recording of the beheadings of Egyptian Coptic Christians kidnapped from Sirte. Sadly, no Libyan authority has been able to take any effective action.
President Goodluck Jonathan is very optimistic that the Nigerian troops will eradicate Boko Haram from the country in 3 weeks. Yes, he did say 3 weeks in an interview he had with our friends at the VOA. Bear in mind the date for the presidential election is drawing closer, and sure, a lot of people are anxious about the security situation in the country. The president hinges his confidence on a lot of training and new equipment the military has been provided with. Coincidentally, Western countries are also beginning to show more support for Nigeria in the fight against the terror group.
We knew that it was beyond just Nigeria.
President Goodluck Jonathan, in the interview with the VOA done just before ISIS' response to Boko Haram's offer, explains his belief of the link between Boko Haram and ISIS, but not the extent.
We know the links are there. But even now, we may not know the degree of linkage as to how much funds are coming in from them, the kind of volume of weapons coming in from them, the machineries coming from them, but the training, yes, because some of the Boko Haram members go to have their training in the ISIS camps and come back. So the linkages are known, and it's not just now that we know about the linkages.
But his confidence swells when he speaks about the renewed capability of the Nigerian military.
Ordinarily, when you buy new equipment, you have a time that you train your local people so that they will be very, very conversant with it. And we don't have that luxury because of the excesses of Boko Haram. So we rather agree that come and train the people on ground. And some of the equipment we have also, the rate of breakdown was worrisome. And you don't want an equipment that is expensive, break down in the forest, you retreat, and if it falls into the hands of these elements and they take over and repair it, then you're in trouble. So we now have these technical people who are trainers and technicians, people who are to train our people on how to use them, and technicians that help the maintenance, at the same time training our people how to maintain this equipment.
Security has been a major issue surrounding elections this year, and while many have criticized the Independent National Electoral Commission for rescheduling the elections, they agree that protection of lives remains more important than the gathering of votes for the polls. With one state already declared free of Boko Haram, President Jonathan seems certain the threat to Nigerians will become a thing of the past.
I'm hopeful that in the next 3 weeks, we'll be able to take over our territories. That will not end Boko Haram. But the issue of holding on to territories, I believe in the next 3 weeks, we'll be able to take over these territories. Yes, they will still be using improvised explosive devices, these IEDs, to cause havoc, especially soft targets like markets, schools, and so on. And people have to be extremely careful. But the issue of holding on to territories where they will pin in their flags, I believe in the next 3 weeks, we'll be able to rout the Boko Haram.
As at Friday last week, the military said it had retaken Baga, a strategic town on the Nigeria-Chad, Niger-Cameroon border from the insurgents. The Director of Defense Information, Major General Chris Olukolade, confirmed that Nigerian forces have full control of all seized territories. The retaking of towns and cities from Boko Haram has boosted confidence in the army as well. Though many wish the efforts had come sooner, more are grateful it came at all.